my first phone was a Trio, then I had a BlackBerry.
Oh, yeah.
Then I moved into a flip phone. So I've had the benefit, and I think other people in my generation have had the benefit of having to learn and adapt to technology.
Welcome to another episode of the Prosper Brief. Today we're joined by Tae Kim, Chief Development Officer at CJ Foodville USA. Tune in as we explore her journey and the strategies driving growth and transformation in the food service industry.
We are live here at the Prosper Forum. This is the Prosper Brief, a show dedicated to elevating the future of the food service and hospitality industry. I'm James Rogers, COO of the Prosper Forum, and I'm delighted to have our guest today, Tae Kim, who is Chief Development Officer for CJ Foodville USA. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, James. It's my pleasure to be here, and great chance for us to sort of talk, I guess, on camera.
Yeah, I know. We've been friends for a little while.
Yeah.
We'll let the audience know Tae was in our inaugural 2023 Accelerator program, and she's been a friend of ours for more than a year now. You were here last year, right?
I was.
In Amelia Island?
Yes.
Yeah. How was that last year?
I think last year was just, it was a sensory overload in so many ways. And then we had that hurricane, right?
Oh, yeah.
So much got compacted into a very short amount of time. I think it was rich in content, but missed some opportunities for networking. So I'm trying to make the most of that here.
Yeah, we're making up on that. That's right.
Exactly.
This year's been pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's been wonderful. And, there were some folks I wanted to meet, and was able to set some time to meet with them, and folks that I was able to reconnect with. So it was just wonderful for just strengthening the network.
What's one highlight this week that you've taken away or you will take away from?
Wow, there's so many highlights. I think there was one of the speakers, St. Marshall, had us, really talked about, not only inviting people to the dance, but making sure that they could dance, right? And giving the tools to do that. And I think that's an image that or saying that I will take with me. And I think it's going to impact me in so many ways, not just professionally, but personally as well.
That's fantastic. Yeah, St. Marshall got everybody dancing in the audience.
Oh,
right?
yeah, it was fun.
Amazing. What a commanding leader. And she's since is the CEO, the CEO of the Dallas Mavericks. And what a personality, incredible woman. And to watch her get everybody going like that, that takes a special person. Right?
Absolutely. So, but you know what? I mean, the conference is not over yet. So I may add to this, but that'll have to be for another podcast.
Okay, we'll have to bring you back. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, we'd love to learn a little bit more about you. I mean, I know a little bit about you, but bring us up to speed. Who's Tae?
Yeah, so I think, some things you can just tell physically, right? So I'm Korean-American woman. I came to the U.S. when I was 5. So I consider myself very much American. I'm a U.S. citizen. I've naturalized. And this becomes important. I think some of the things we'll talk about later. So I very much identify as American, but obviously I have this Korean heritage. Yeah. And so that's, that all of that impacts the way I approach, I think, every aspect of my life, including professionally. That said, career path-wise, I've been in the restaurant industry since 2006. Did a couple other things before. So I've been in health insurance, and I've actually been in TV and film production. Which
that's right. Yeah, you did tell me that.
Yes.
I'll have to share that with everyone.
Yeah, and so I've had that kind of experience, but in the restaurant industry since 2006. Had the opportunity to be trained at Panda Restaurant Group to work on the Panda Express brand. It was the one and only time they did a real estate rep training program, and I got to be a part of it with really excellent formalized training across all aspects of the role. I think, and I still refer back to training I received then to help me do my job today. So I have to give a lot of credit and thanks for that opportunity. Then I went to work with Argo Tea, which was a Chicago-based tea cafe concept, leading up their non-trad development as well. And I had the opportunity to launch Argo Tea Korea. Again, this is going to sort of weave into things, but I had the opportunity to open up operations in Korea along with our operating partner there, but really got a chance to spearhead that project. Then I got tapped to join Wow Bao in their business development role. Got to work with Jeff Alexander and really be there for 6 incredible years of fast pivots, a lot of tech adoption, and rolling out new businesses, new types of businesses like the dark kitchen that had never existed before.
That's right. Yeah.
So I learned a lot, sort of going from working for a large health insurance company that sort of moves very slow to one of the fastest pivoting and growing concepts in the US in the restaurant industry. Then I also then got a call offering me the opportunity to join the C-level role as a Chief Development Officer for CJ Foodville USA. There's a CJ Foodville Korea in Korea. That's our HQ because it is a Korean brand that I'm working on right now. So Tout Le Jour is a bakery cafe concept. We currently have 122 locations here in the U.S., on pace to open about one a week for the rest of this year. So we're very busy, mostly in a franchise-based growth model. And globally, it's an 1,800 unit brand that has existed for a long time. In the US, just for 20 years, but in Korea and elsewhere, much longer history. So it's a lot, but just try to compact that a little bit.
It's amazing. I didn't know about the panda part.
Yeah.
It's incredible what something that happens earlier in our career, how we can take that with us.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more. I'm very curious about that training, and we don't want to get into specifics and give any secrets away, but what was like one nugget that really stuck with you out of that you'd share with everybody, if you can share it?
Yeah. So there's like two visuals that I really have thinking about that training. So earlier in one of the sessions, Greg Majewski talked about cleaning the bathrooms when he goes in. And as part of our training, we did the operations work. And there was one restaurant where we knew when we went that we were going to be cleaning the bathrooms that night. But that was really important to the operations, right? We were going to be working in restaurant development and building stores, but we only would have the opportunity to continue building if our stores were performing well. So I think that was a really telling thing. Also, working with our facility directors, we got to shadow all these folks in different roles. And, we showed up and he said, we got to go up and check the rooftop equipment. So you're going to climb up the ladder. And thankfully, I don't have fear of heights. So I climbed up that ladder. But this, again, is something that the facility managers do day in and day out, right? So just being able to go along for that and see what they're looking at and really trying to take in as much of the experience as possible.
That's got to feed into culture, right? That's got to feed into no jobs beneath us, right?
Yes.
Is that what you felt when you worked at Panda?
Absolutely. It's operations led, so even on deal making, you always need the buy-in of your operations partner. Right. And it's, you have a much better relationship when it's a collaborative choice as opposed to, something that you sort of coerce them into doing. But yes, operations being key. And even to this day, I think for somebody in my role, and there are others who have really great operations experience who are in development, but I do find that I am much more operations conscious when it comes to development.
Got it. That's great. So just a side question really quick. Anything fun you've done this summer?
Yeah, so right before the summer, and I'm in this new role just under 5 months. Just before that, I did take a trip to London.
Oh no, really? Wow.
So this is where the Korean part comes in. So, when there's international sporting events, I'm usually cheering for Team Korea.
Okay, of course.
Yes. And so Son Heung-min is the captain of the Korean soccer team, football team, as well as the Tottenham Hotspur. So went to go watch him play. The Spurs were playing against the Wolves, which also has a star Korean player. So got to go, just went across the pond to go watch a game.
Was that your first time in Europe?
No. Okay, I've been before. Yeah. So this time I was very focused on the match. Yeah.
Going. Who won?
The Wolves did.
Oh, the Wolves did. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're happy about that, or?
Well, there was another Korean player on the team, right? So,
it doesn't matter who won.
Well, and to be fair, the Spurs didn't play that well that game. So I would say the Wolves, who played so well, deserved to win.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, so you've moved to California, right?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Not
okay.
yet.
In process.
Yeah, due to some family things, the company was willing to work around that. So I'm moving next month if all goes according to plan.
Are you excited?
I am. I think being closer to my team is going to be really important, and being able to collaborate with the executive team there more, in person. That makes a big difference. I think working in person together, to me, does have a lot of value. So
it's huge.
I'm looking forward to that. And I lived in LA before. So I lived there for 9 years previously. So it's a little bit like going back home, but with a completely new spin to it.
Yeah. homecoming in a way, right?
Yep.
But you're with a new company.
Mhm.
Tell us about your role. Tell us what your day-to-day looks like, maybe, or whatever else you want to share. But we'd love to know how that's going.
Yes. So I am the Chief Development Officer, and I have two teams that report to me. So one is our business development team. They do our franchisee development work as well as our real estate work.
Yeah.
And then we also have what's called the interior team, and it's our design and construction team. So we take them all the way through store opening. It's a really great group of people to work with, and one of my roles is, it is a Korean-based company, and a lot of my colleagues are Korean primarily, right? So they are Korean-speaking primarily. A lot of their professional experience has been either in Korea or with Korean companies here in the U.S. So I'm really diversifying, actually, our company. I'm the American, and so some of my unofficial roles are to serve as a cultural translator in a lot of ways.
That's amazing. So what are some ways that you're going about trying to do that, bringing, translating our culture and matching those together? What are some ways you're doing that?
Well, one thing I did was I brought my CEO here to the Prosper Forum. So that was one of the ways I did that. The group that I can influence most directly is my team, right? So it's really trying to take them to just things like conferences and walking through them together. Walking through, not taking for granted that we're on the same page about some of these like business fundamentals, but going through details together to say, are we aligned on this? And then, when there are more effective or efficient ways of how the American way is done, trying to implement those as well.
That's amazing. So bringing cultures together.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So I know it's been a short tenure so far. You're getting there, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that you're looking at. What are you most proud of so far? What's
in my career?
Yeah, or in your career, or even at CJ. What's going on with that? Yeah.
I think, career-wise, and this sort of bodes to this as well, I'm very much of a relationship builder, I think. And so that has really served me well throughout the years. And I'm not doing it because I'm seeing like an intrinsic, some sort of value in it, but I really love connecting with people. And so I think that's one of the things I've done well, trying to get to know my team well, understand not only what makes them tick, but what brings them joy. What are some of the things they might be struggling with? And so I think, it's a short tenure, but I feel like I have been able to build really good relationships and some depth to the relationships with a lot of the members of my team. It'll only get better once I'm there in person with them all the time.
I know it's difficult from a ways away.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I think that's also just a constant of just trying to see people for who they are. And so inside of an organization, I've been that person that, I can be a confidant. People come to me to just talk about things, which I really value, that trust. But then I think in external, outside of the organization, I think just me being candid and giving feedback, and also like when I can't share something, just saying I can't share it, instead of dancing around it. I think those kinds of interactions have helped me to build trust with folks and, really be able to build a network of people that I really trust a lot as my advisors.
Sounds like you have a real transparent approach. You try to, unless you can't, you're transparent and you're honest about it. Yeah, that's fantastic. It's transparency is a superpower, and it's not easy to do. It takes a lot of effort. So that's amazing. So what kind of challenges are you encountering? What do you see in the industry that you think we're struggling with, either collectively or individually? What do you see?
So this is based a little bit on my experience of, especially at WABA, we work with a lot of tech, right? And then tech is constant. So whether it's that team or the, other groups that I've been with or teams I've worked with, tech is ever evolving. And I am a Gen Xer. And so I've had the benefit of when I was growing up, we used dial-up phones, like getting a push-button phone. Like you were really cool.
The cord around
exactly. Yeah, you take the long cord around. I learned how to type on a typewriter. And now, I then had to adapt to using a Trio. I don't know if you remember that. So my first phone was a Trio. Then I had a BlackBerry. Then I moved into a flip phone. So I've had the benefit, and I think other people in my generation have had the benefit of having to learn and adapt to technology. So I think it's not a coincidence that you see a lot of the tech-forward leaders are more, in some ways, of my generation. But with all of this technology changing, I think one of the challenges I see is that those folks who haven't had to live through all these tech changes, because so much focus was on making user experience so easy, understanding the mechanics of what's happening behind the scenes and how to adapt that and make it functional and usable and valuable. I think that's like a missing link that we're going to see sort of that division between the technology evolving and developing and the capacity of the folks who are using it to actually be able to tap the full power of the technology. So yeah, I just see that being a general trend, not just for the restaurant industry, but overall. But I think we're really going to feel it because we are even more reliant on people. For example, a lot of our back of house people don't speak English as a primary language, right? Or as a first language. So now we're going to be asking people to adopt tech in a language that they're not necessarily comfortable with and adopt that tech language as well, right? So I think we have to be really thinking about great tech is great, but how do we make it easy? And maybe not easy, but how do we help our people to scale that learning curve or like learn how to build that muscle?
What you're saying reminds me of like the disk when you save something.
Yeah.
You know, I remember floppy disks.
I had floppy disks.
We had floppies, but somebody's like, what is that square?
Yeah.
You know, so I'm sure that there's lots of, sorry, millennials and Zers out there, but you know, that's clearly, and yeah, what you're talking about is they don't know the base code that everything was built on to some degree, unless they go back and learn that. That's like a history lesson, right? So
exactly.
And I can see what you're right. Like, how do you design on top of a system you don't understand what's supporting it? And sometimes that will work, but sometimes it won't. And how do you design simple systems that add value? We talked about this in another session earlier that, you know, these systems, the tech has to add value to everybody and not add complexity, ideally.
Right. Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, but I think it's also, I think tech, if you use it sort of for that intended purpose, it has a shelf life. Right. But if you can understand how to take tech and apply that to enhance the work or to enhance the value, that's where I think you really tap or untap. What's the word tap, I guess, the real true business value out of it. And I do see a gap. And I think it's just different experiences of being able to be sort of cogent immediately or be a natural adapter, like if it's not a fit with the user, right? So we're designing a lot to the user, but not necessarily having resources to help the user learn how to use the tool.
Right. Well, and you're always trying to drill into each group. How is this user group, you know, this generation is different from that generation, you know, and it would seem, I guess I could ask you that question. What ways do you propose that we go about? What are some best practices you think we should integrate as an industry in trying to solve that quagmire, right, of the generational spread and adopting tech?
Yeah.
It's very cumbersome, their approaches to it, right?
Yeah, you know, I think one of the themes too at this conference has been be curious.
Yeah.
And I don't have a good fix for it, but I think it's trying to, as we have folks coming into our teams, trying to guide them to build natural curiosity so that that this mindset is something that's pervasive, right? I think a lot of times we're so results driven. We want to get from point A to B in the fastest way possible, but you learn a lot by taking those left and right turns and creating a space where folks it's okay for people to be learning it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier said than done, right? Because everything needs to be done yesterday. So, but I think it's like a different approach that, you know, that I want to take. And I think we will have to take more of in order to help our teams, our future leaders develop to help build that muscle.
Yeah. You almost got to allow people to meander a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But not too much.
Right.
They don't waste too much. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's an interesting question because it goes back to culture and leadership and all this stuff. And another conversation we had recently was talking about leading people and how do you help them, but don't do it for them. And, you know, talk to me about how you lead individuals, especially when somebody that's greener or, you know, you're having to hand off projects to them they don't fully understand, they've never done before. How do you go about helping them process that, you know, in leadership?
Yeah, I think I just try to ask questions. You know, I try to, I try to do it as I would say,
Don't knee jerk.
Yeah. I don't want to be a micromanager unless I have to be, because there are some people who do need that.
Yeah.
And trying to understand what kind of guidance folks need. Some people really want step by step, or don't see it or don't get it until they see it, right? So I think in those cases, giving them examples of what it is that I may be looking for, or walking with them through. We just went through an exercise where implementing is actually a tech solution for our team. And so just walking them through in a lot of detail, like line by line, not throughout the whole thing, but just a few examples to say, this is what I'm talking about here, and walking them through it. I think in the past, I would turn over like, hey, I made some of these corrections for you and you can do it. And now it's more of, let's sit down and talk about it. And like, let me just walk you through the thought process and let them run with it.
Yeah, it's guiding somebody to the solution and letting them discover it. And then it helps them to be a better leader. And also it imparts that leadership trait to them too.
Yeah,
right? We almost handicap people when we just teach them how to do tasks, right?
Yeah. And I really don't love the idea of the word tasks, actually. I know you said it, but if someone really sees what they're doing as a series of tasks, there's no joy in that, right? There's no, just the word itself is a drudgery. So I think just talking about the goals and what needs to be accomplished, but this is also, I think, a tech influence.
Okay.
Because when you set up tech, a lot of things are task items, right?
That's right.
So it's like really pervaded our culture.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And words mean a lot.
Yeah.
It means something, and everybody takes a word, and you're absolutely right on that. Well, that's very interesting. I want to transition us a little bit, and I want to go back to the last year or so. You've been an accelerator with us. Congratulations again. And thank you so much for going on this journey with us. And you were the first class, so you had some of the bumps along the road as we've been working the program out. So thank you for being a part of it. And talk to us a little bit about, if you would, the value that you've received and your experience, and what would you want to share with others about the accelerator program, if you would?
Yeah. So I think, the meet and greet people like you and developing friendships, that's something that's invaluable.
Yeah, same here.
And I think just the openness of folks to connect. As part of the accelerator program, we've been exposed to a lot of leaders, people who are groundbreaking leaders in the industry. And it's been great to say, hey, you just spoke to our team. Can we please connect? And, I'll follow you on Instagram, and now, and we'll be connected, and we'll build networks that way, right? And so some of it has been, I started following people, and here I've been able to say, hey, you just accepted my invite recently. Thank you. And now you have a face, right? In person. So I think there's been that. I think it's also just the camaraderie of folks, just knowing that there are people who are rooting for you and wanting to see people succeed. And I think every organization wants to see that, but there's always within an organization, there's another goal, right? You want people to succeed, and you want them to also be contributors to the work that you're doing. And I think, with the accelerator program in particular, there's a lot of pouring into the accelerators. And I think there's a hope that we will be able to give back, but it doesn't necessarily feel like there's a mandate. I should say that there is a mandate, because there's a reason why we've been selected, right? And to do this. But it doesn't necessarily feel like I need this kind of performance out of you, so I really appreciated how much is poured in and sort of given very generously, based on, I think, a lot of hope and really a lot of optimism.
Yeah. And we're building a community that it's going to change the industry, and so thanks for being a part of that. I'll tell you one little thing that really stuck with me from the last year is, and I think I've told you before, but was we were before the forum last year. I opened up my phone and LinkedIn, and you and your crew, you had some friends, Lori, I think Jamin, I'm forgetting the other.
And Michelle,
Michelle, that's right. And I looked on it, you guys were, it looked like by the Chicago River, right?
Yeah.
And you were having lunch together or something.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And people had never met before, right?
Yes.
I think all of you were new friends. And some of those folks are lifelong friends now, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So I think just meeting people that I might not have otherwise met. I think there's value there too, right? Because this is such a big industry, and the program helps make it smaller. And so I think for the accelerators that have come in, I'm so excited to welcome a whole new class of accelerators. If you're listening to class of 24, congratulations. But I would just say dive in. I think just taking advantage of the opportunities, whether it's like the webinars that were done or the in-person experiences, but also just leveraging the open door that this is, not just to fellow accelerators, but to other leaders in the industry who really value the accelerator community.
It's awesome. Well, Tae, thank you so much for being a part of the Prosper community, a big part.
Thank you.
And just being a friend, and also all that you do to help contribute to what we're building here. And thanks for being on the Prosper Brief. And we just are grateful for you being here this week. So
thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us today. If Tae Kim's insights resonated with you, be sure to subscribe, share, and stay connected for more impactful conversations. We'll see you next time here on the Prosper Brief.